Hello, everybody, and welcome back to What the Ref, a podcast where we discuss everybody's favourite research evaluation framework. Welcome to another year of REF-iness. I'm Gemma.
I'm Simon.
I'm Ola.
And today we're looking at what the ref has been happening. Simon.
Christmas happened and the whole break and everything, so that was fun. But on the ref side of things, it's been quite interesting actually, because obviously we had all those changes being announced in December, and Ola and I were there, and we did that podcast live from the event, and then now it's been that sort of reckoning, hasn't it? So there's been a couple of articles out that I saw that was quite interesting, both of them in one key. So one from James Coe giving us an overview of the changes. I recommend that you read that. And then there was another from Molly Etheridge, who looked at actually removing culture from what was the PCE and the effect that's having on people who are early career researchers. And that actually, it was a new idea to me, because obviously they have fewer sort of countable metrics. So they're actually they're a bit more reliant on the culture side of things, and she wrote some really interesting points about how that will affect early career researchers. Those are the two sort of big things for me. And then there's one other that I really have to talk about, and I know that Lindsay's going to kill us if we do, and that is on the 27th of January. Details on our website. It's our first ever community call. So there's a lot of interest in this community call. We have no idea how many people are going to turn up, but the idea is to turn up and discuss issues around the ref. It'd be a really interesting event. I don't know. What do you think? Have you got any plans for it, Gemma?
Well, I think for me, when the new REF guidelines dropped in December, they were strategically very smart in fact that they gave us enough time to busy ourselves around the new criteria and how to make sense of it. And then we were all off for Christmas. And so we had a lot to ruminate over our Christmas pudding. What the ref does this mean? And for me in 2026, it's okay, the rules are set. I think the change between the word culture and strategy is semantic only. I think the word strategic is perhaps self-serving to what the government sees is necessary for research and innovation in this country. But you know what? I'm really pragmatic. Let's just get down and do it. I've always been like that. We have the rules, and so we're starting a new year fresh. We've had enough time over Christmas, New Year to talk about the ref changes and to perhaps, have a celebratory drink if you're one of the people that really, really like these changes, or to perhaps not have a celebratory drink and drink for other reasons if you're one of the ones who don't like the changes. But now, 2026, let's get on with it. That includes an exciting year for the hidden ref as well.
So Ola was saying something interesting earlier on about the fact that we can now focus more on outputs.
So I think the dust has definitely settled now since the announcement, and I'll be looking forward to some of the town halls organised by the REF and joining them, because that's where all the details will come through, and I think there will be a lot of questions from the community. But indeed, we have been really busy since our Hidden Ref Festival, and in October. So it's been 4 very busy months of analysing an experiment that we ran there, and we have some quite exciting findings as far as our plans to form a meaningful guidance around assessing non-traditional outputs.
You can't leave us hanging there.
Yeah.
What are the exciting output? I mean, we can't really say too much about it yet until it's published, I guess, but there must be something you can say to give people a bit of a flavour of what you're finding.
Yeah, so just maybe briefly, I'll explain what we did in October. It was a really wonderful opportunity to bring brilliant research stakeholders and get them to talk and evaluate non-traditionally submitted outputs. So we designed this experiment as a kind of a role play with pairs evaluating and observing how NTOs are assessed. And we actually looked at 4 specific outputs. We curated them from the REF-21 website, so they were real outputs. There's a website content, software composition, music composition, and a database. And we collected about 68 observations. So it's quite a lot of data, from a 2-hour event. So there's a lot of really rich data, but we particularly focused on the challenges that evaluators encountered when assessing NTOs. We looked at the rules of thumb when assessing NTOs, which is the heuristic devices when trying to operationalize the REF criteria, which is significance, originality, and rigour. Gemma, you were there, so what did you think?
Yeah, so to add to that, we really described this as what we call a think-aloud experiment. So we actually asked people to voice exactly what their impressions of the output was, to identify through a series of warm-up exercises that we did before, what was key for them to use to evaluate it, and to really start a discussion with themselves and also their pair about, what was useful, what wasn't useful, how they would assess it. And we actually asked them to give it, to rate it on a REF scale from unclassified all the way up to 4-star, to see how they're making the decision. And when we talk about heuristics, we're talking about little pieces of information that people use to make a decision. And when we're talking about traditional outputs, these things are socialized into an expert evaluator's kind of being and their socialization as an academic. And a lot of the things that we see about, responsible research evaluation are really about trying to get people to ignore certain very natural heuristics, which are wrongly applied, and they're trying to basically stop them from hanging on to these heuristics to guide their decision or anchor the decision making. And when I'm talking about that for traditional outputs, I'm talking about, heuristics such as journal impact factor, citations, who they're co-authoring from, what the institution is. And all of these heuristics are associated with a form of bias that is considered detrimental to a robust evaluation of this particular output. What we're trying to do with non-traditional outputs is not necessarily tell them not what to use, but because non-traditional outputs aren't traditionally associated with some discipline's idea of what research excellence is, which is heavily guided by traditional outputs, hence the reason the Hidden Ref and the E-Type project exists in the first place, but really voice about what those heuristics are. What are the guide points that these people use to make a decision, to start a conversation around the excellence of this output? Our idea is once we identify these, we'll be able to feed those into guidelines about how to evaluate this effectively, but more importantly, how to evaluate this responsibly, and so that non-traditional outputs are, assessed by criteria that is appropriate to them. Simon, what about you?
So it's the feed into the assessment guidelines I'm really interested in. I'm sort of obviously reading through the report, which we can do currently and nobody else can, which sounds bad, sounds like we're not sharing, but there is a timeline, isn't there? When are we going to publish this?
How long is a piece of string? No, so our idea is to get the policy report, a policy brief, as well as an article submitted to an academic journal by the start of Q2. So what's that? Before Easter, I would say?
Yeah, before Easter. Yeah. So we will be sharing all of these findings with everybody, but the way that I'm really interested about how we're sharing the findings will be through the assessment guidelines. Now, obviously, we're running these not traditionally submitted output workshops, and to date, we've been running them on, here's some not traditionally submitted outputs. What do you think? How would you assess them? And for the first time, we'll actually be able to start saying these are some guidelines for how to do the assessment. And there's this whole thing about this virtuous cycle that we're trying to build up. We're looking into how the assessments are done. We're trying to sort of condense that down into guidelines. Then we're going and testing those guidelines with real life people who will be doing assessments and updating it in that way. So that's the thing that's, I think, is going to really be able to shift the culture around NTO assessment, because for the first time ever, people will know what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think the difference here is for traditional outputs, there's a lot of guidance about what not to do. Don't use the journal impact factor. Don't use citations. Don't be blinded by this. For non-traditional outputs, because we are able to start from such a blank slate, we're actually looking at what is helpful and how to do it differently. So the question is different. But that's the reason why the Hidden Ref started. It's a live experiment, but now we're formalizing these live experiments both at the Hidden Ref festivals and the hidden ref competitions to trial how these work, how they don't work, towards, an idea that we can create a framework or a set of heuristics or thinking points to the panels so that it can start having discussions around the merit of non-traditional outputs, rather than trying to hinge, the heuristics they use for traditional outputs onto non-traditionally submitted outputs, which don't necessarily match because non-traditional outputs do not have citations. They do not have necessarily a DOI. They're not indexed in the same way. And so the rules that we use for traditional outputs are not necessarily appropriate.
So I have a question for Ola. So,
Yeah.
Obviously, so what was it, 68?
68 observations.
68 observations to sit through, which were all around about an hour long. Is that right?
So we got them to evaluate two pieces of research output, and they took turns. So we had pairs and 68 different evaluations.
How was that? Can you give us some insight into how long it took and how you went about doing the analysis? Because that's a very scary amount of data.
So that definitely was. And obviously, luckily, there are qualitative analysis software out there actually that really helps. So initially, it was just a massive mountain of think-aloud segments, which we asked our participants to not to write down, but actually to record their voices, to keep that idea of thinking as you're doing something. So to remove that retrospection and really make the decisions obvious and pin down those heuristics or the rules of thumb that they used when assessing non-traditional outputs. So that's why we had to be guided also by some specific research questions. And we wanted to look at challenges, those heuristics, but also ways in which they operationalized or made sense of significance, originality, and rigour. And these are the official REF criteria, which can mean, a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So there is a definition, but still it's interesting how different evaluators make sense of it and apply it in practice. So one of the things that maybe I could give you a flavor of the findings that we've got, and I think it could be potentially, it is one of the most recurring themes across all those observations, is the challenge with how the NTOs are in themselves described, how they're presented to the evaluator. And, if you remember that you only have 300 words to showcase an NTO, of course, including some links to the actual output, that really doesn't give you a lot of space to shout about significance, originality, rigour, about what it actually is in terms of the methodology. And so evaluators really noticed that there was a lot of inconsistency across different NTOs. It was almost like a free-for-all, anything goes, which doesn't embed trust in that evaluation. Because if you can do anything that you like, that it means there's no consistency and you can't compare it easily to with other NTOs. Gemma?
Yeah, it was kind of fun, wasn't it, all going through and selecting the NTOs to be assessed? Because even when we were doing that between the two of us, we were like, okay, which piece of database, which website, which policy document, etc. We did notice a lot of difference in the type of information that each institution put into that 300 words. So, in one, all I remember there was one where they put a lot of indicators and indices and downloads and things, which seemed very appropriate. But when we saw another institution's description of the same type of non-traditionally submitted output, or NTO, they included different information. So we in ourselves, just when we were looking at these non-traditionally submitted outputs within the same panels, right, we found huge differences in how institutions use those 300 words to describe what they thought were the ways in which they could stimulate a robust assessment of significance, rigour, and novelty and originality. Do you remember doing that? It was crazy.
Yeah, it was really fun. But actually, this is a potentially very nice and easy win for the NTO guidance. If we could sit down and really discuss it with the experts, whether we could expand the description word limit to maybe 500 words. We don't want a load of words, but it's not very fair for a journal article or a book chapter to have around 10,000 words, and you can dive into methodology in great detail. style. So maybe we should be a bit more generous about NTO descriptions. But also we could structure those descriptions in the way that abstracts are often structured in journal articles. Exactly what do you need to include in that description? I think that would be very helpful.
But the problem there, Ola, is that journal articles don't have that burden of proof the same way that non-traditionally submitted outputs have that burden of proof. So one of the things that came out from the Hidden Ref Festival is everyone was saying, I want the NTO to specifically tell me how they reach, how they meet the criteria of originality, significance, and rigour. And yet, a traditionally submitted output doesn't have the same burden of proof. They don't have to do that. They just submit the output and they assume that the expert is going to be allowed to do it. So there's an interesting tension there in the fact that you're asking NTOs to do more in less words than a traditionally submitted output. I don't know whether, Ola, are we going backwards and forwards about this, this two-stream kind of evaluation process for traditionally submitted outputs and non-traditionally submitted outputs? Is there a middle ground? What do you guys think?
So I had a different point. Actually, I was thinking about this idea of how many words you get to use to describe your output, and it'd be really interesting to look at all of the, say, journal articles that were submitted, and we know that's the vast majority of what was submitted, and count how many words are in there. What's the average number of words that you get to represent a journal output compared to the 300 you get for an NTO? That I think would be interesting. The other thing I had was, when we were looking at this idea of, people don't really know they don't know the way to describe an NTO. So they've all taken their own approach. And then, so what you're trying to compare is, even if you're comparing a piece of data against another piece of data, they've taken entirely different approaches to how they support it. So if we can do anything to give some structure around that, so at least you'd be comparing like against like, that's going to be hugely important. And then the last thing I had was from the report, and all I was picking out this focus that people have on aesthetics when it comes to, we had a composition, and there was this whole influence that was occurring because people were like, oh, don't really like it, and you were, well, it's not taste, and it's not, we're judging it on that. We're judging it on originality, significance, and rigour. So I'm really interested in what Ola thought about that particular the assessment on the compositions.
Yes, and interestingly, compositions scored the lowest out of the 4. So there was this interesting aesthetics creep across the observations around the music composition, and there was a really funny one when someone said, I think I would only give it to my nemesis for Christmas, this music composition, because I hate it. I don't like it. And this really shows how it can color and bias your approach to a particular output. So I think it does two things. It can really prejudice you. You can really love it. You can like it. We had evaluators who absolutely loved the website that we presented them with, and they're playing around with it. They're distracted with the usability of it and all the things that you could do with it. But it can be colored negatively. But another thing it could do is, this observation or this finding really shows us that it questions the who is the appropriate judge or interpreter of what research excellence is, what research quality is. And if we think of different users, well, we really should be focusing on the researcher or the academic as the primary user of a research output, right? Because we don't want to mix it with the impact case study. But at the same time, are we really not throwing the baby out with the bathwater if we just approach NTOs in this sense that we rigidly just want to look at the research methodology rigor side of things? So I think there's no quick answer to that. And I think it brings a much more profound debate around aesthetics, around the blurring of boundaries between art, science, practice, who to bring around the table to really decide what is excellent science and research.
Yeah, because if things like performance or exhibition or music, they kind of also need to be experienced to be appreciated, right? So that experience doesn't come from sitting in an evaluation room in front of a computer and clicking on a link. You don't get that idea. And at the same time, I don't know why, but during the warm-up exercises, we've mentioned in previous podcasts that we got them to evaluate Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters. And there's some people who hate it. They can't articulate why they hate it, but they just get this response to it. And that's based on their experience of it. Getting them to articulate why they don't like it, that's the next part. And that's why I think the data that Ola has is just so exciting, because it tells you why people like it and why people hate it. And from there, we can actually get people to, verbalize their very emotive responses to these pieces of research or these non-traditionally submitted outputs that are to be experienced rather than just evaluated in isolation. Simon,
you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was just thinking, you were saying there's no quick and easy way of doing this, right? And the issues that we're talking around here, not just about compositions and other artistic works, but just in general about NTOs, the problem is that it's very, very difficult to work out a set of guidelines to assess these very different range of different NTOs. Now, what we have seen quite a lot in these workshops that we're running and in the festival as well is when people start doing it, they go, oh, it's more simple than I thought it would be. It's easier to do than I thought it would be, because they're just using a whole new set of heuristics, I guess, to do that assessment. They're just learning about those heuristics, and they're learning about what judgment calls to make. So I think there isn't a quick and easy way of doing it, but there is a long and difficult way of doing it, which is the way we've chosen, which is, you come up with some ideas, you share them with a group of people, you get some feedback, you remove some of the bad ideas, you focus on some of the good ones, and you just keep in that cycle. Yeah.
You discuss them with your peers. Just because you evaluate it, as 3-star doesn't necessarily mean it will end up having 3-star. That's the whole point of a deliberation. That's why we have panels, so that if you are wrong, someone can point out you are wrong and you reach a better compromise. I mean, your reasons why you hate it are just as valuable as somebody's reasons why they love it. But those two, polar distinctions kind of have to, through deliberation, come to an idea about what is the excellence according to the criteria. That's different, and that's what I think we're seeing in these initial data from the think-aloud experiment. What do you reckon, Ola?
I think we could also be tempted to be a little bit more radical than we think, because when you think, oh, let's look at, producing NTO guidance, and that guidance can be taken to the panels and adopted, but we can also think about the different mechanics surrounding that evaluation. And one of the more radical things that I'm absolutely not saying that we should do, but we should certainly have a conversation with the community about it, is that to what extent it would be a good idea to bring in experts on a particular NTO together as a panel, and then have an incoming discipline expert to just sense check that it's excellent at the discipline level, but the majority of the panel have the NTO expertise. And I think that would really give the NTOs what they deserve in terms of sophistication, complexity, and the expertise that they really, really should be awarded.
Yeah, so what does that NTO expert look like, Ola? What do they look like?
I don't know yet.
That's why it's radical. We don't have all the answers.
Don't have yet. Not yet, anyway. But
I think the thing is, everybody on those panels is an expert in journal publications or books, right? So they're well stocked with those experts. The idea, it's always about how these ideas will scale, of course, because, you've got 21 different outputs, and then you've got 32 panels, if I remember correctly. I'm always forgetting these numbers. And then, so you've got to have enough people, and you couldn't just have, say, one expert in patents being called upon constantly. So you'd have to have numbers of them. And there are lots of, issues around that. But again, I think it's this, you have to take this pragmatic approach that it would be better than not having access to expertise, would be having access to some expertise. Now, obviously, RDAP are kind of doing a bit of this in the sense that, so RDAP is the Research Diversity Advisory Panel. That's the REF panel that will be dealing about the diversity of research outputs. and they're going to have a representative on each of the main panels, if I remember correctly. My word, this is all last year, and it's all coming back to me. It's amazing. I can actually remember stuff still. And those people are, the part of their role will be to at least maybe not represent, but at least defend not traditionally submitted outputs. Gemma, you must know more about this.
Yeah, so I think the word is sense check, not necessarily defend. I don't think that RDAP is going to...
We need defended.
Yeah, they need defending. No, I don't think they need defending because they are excellent. I think they're sense checking, like, are you being fair? And are you doing this according to the criterion? I think that's why it's so important that we continue working with RDAP, is by saying, look, we know that, you've got X number of people and that's X number of expertise, but, being able to not only do it, but communicating to the panels if they're doing something badly, which is very, very hard when you're talking about a panel of, very, very, prestigious academics at the top of their game who are trying to make an assessment. Telling, maybe you should do this again, or you've done this wrong, or it's unfair is not an easy thing to do. And I think working with RDAP to make sure that the outcomes from, the think-aloud experiment that we did in the Hidden REF Festival and all the rest of the experiments that we have planned for 2026, because we're not done yet, guys, I can tell you that now, are fed into a way in which we can arm RDAP, if you want to talk to defense, hey, Simon, with the expertise necessary to intervene if they see a decision being made beyond the expertise of the people who are on the panel, or that doesn't do it, justice, or perhaps it's based on different criteria that, is not in the criteria that the REF puts forward. I mean, this is all about a fair assessment. And for us, NTOs need to be somehow evaluated against this same criteria that are being applied to traditional outputs. It's just easier to do it for traditional outputs. So working with RDAP to arm them with the expertise necessary to defend their decisions if they see something going wrong is a really, really important way of embedding trust in evaluation. And that's why we're doing it, right, guys? So...
I mean, defense is the only part of research spending that's increasing, I hear. So maybe that's where we need to be, right? It'd be defending poor RDAP representatives after they've just defended a room full of academic silverbacks will be really, really interesting thing to do. I'm not entirely sure I'd want to be in their shoes. But yeah, so I think certainly that's what we need to do. It would be wonderful to talk to the RDAP people after the REF and see what it was like when they said, oh, hang on, this is eligible. I don't know if that information will ever leave the room, though. I don't know. What do you think, Gemma? Do you think we'd be able to get ethics for that?
Oh, we already have ethics at talking. It was part of our plan. Part of our plan is to work with RDAP, to be involved in the calibration exercises and watch the panels, not only because we're interested to see whether they change anything, but also to, evaluate the success of this project. But I guess what Ola and I will doing and what we're committed to doing is create the evidence so it's out there. I mean, we don't necessarily know how it's going to be adopted, but Ola, you can probably agree with me here. Starting a conversation about how to do this responsibly in a way that isn't shadowed by aesthetics or isn't necessarily overshadowed by the idea of what excellence is according to a traditionally submitted output is part of the challenge. And that's what we're here to do. Starting the conversation, don't know where it's going, but...
I should interject, but the lawyer inside me is telling me that we haven't actually got permission to do the calibrations and stuff there, but they are open to a discussion about it.
You have a lawyer inside of you, Simon?
I used to be a lawyer. so yes, so that part is saying, so we can't say we're going to do it, but we really do want to do it, and we are testing the waters.
It was part of our plan.
Yeah, it was part of our plan. Ola, do you want to...
Well, I just thought I really wanted to share this with everyone on the podcast. It's actually not from the experiment itself, but one of the workshops that we ran last year, an NTO workshop. And we were also evaluating, getting the participants to evaluate some NTOs. And one of the participants knew the output inside out, and he loved it. He happened to know the output. Not only he thought it was absolutely excellent, he used it all the time in teaching, he used it in research, and he was all for it. And he thought, well, this is a 4-star output. When the push came to shove, and we actually asked him to tell us what rating he would give according to the description, the 300-word description, he said 2-star.
Really?
because of the lack of research articulation, the poor link to significance, originality, and rigor. And that was a moment for me to realize how important this guidance is going to be, and how it can make, excellent research stand out, because it is excellent. We just need to make sure HEIs are confident and know how to present the best case for it.
Okay, so perhaps it's a good time for us to think about what we're going to be seeing from the E-type project and the Hidden Ref in the next year, in anticipation of what we're going to learn about the assessment of non-traditionally submitted outputs. I think the big one this year, guys, is that we have the Hidden Ref competition again, right? Simon, you want to take us through the dates for that?
Yeah, so the Hidden Ref competition is going to be really exciting. It'll be the third time that we've run it, but this time we're going to be using assessment guidelines that we've written, and we'll be using them in anger. So that'll be really exciting to actually see how a panel of people uses the guidelines, and how well we've done our job of writing them, I guess. So the competition submission categories, because you can suggest whole categories to go into the next competition, that opens in March, closes in May when the competition itself opens. And they will run until September. And excitingly, we have a award ceremony planned for November. Now, depending on sponsorship or not, that might actually be in person, because I have been looking forward to donning a black tie for a long time. But it might be online, it might be in person. We'll have to see how the sponsorship goes. Gemma.
Yeah, I just think that, just to reiterate, the Hidden Ref competition is a really good opportunity for institutions that are grappling with how is this non-traditionally submitted output going to perform in the ref, because I want to put it forward. I really believe in the principles of the 5% manifesto, even though we haven't signed it. It really represents, what this unit of assessment does well, and what is distinctive about this university. If you are unsure, please put it into the Hidden Ref. It's a phenomenal opportunity for you to put it into the Hidden Ref to get a guidance points about how it will perform in the ref. Because again, the Hidden Ref competition, we're going to feed in all of what we've learned from previous Hidden Ref competitions and festivals and all of the experiments we've done into the guidance for the evaluators about how to assess it. And that will be, fed into RDAP and back to REF as well as a key stakeholder in our piece of research. So it's a great opportunity for you to see how it would perform. I don't think there's necessarily going to be, a like-for-like evaluation, but it is a good way of, perhaps assessing this, seeing if it's going to work, and using what you get out of it as a good rationale for either including that NTO into your submission or not. It's up to you. But please put in your submissions and have a go.
So there's lots of benefits as well, because for one thing, it's just good practice at writing a submission for an NTO. So you can see what works and what doesn't work from that. And even if it doesn't help you get your outputs into the standard ref, if you don't benefit from that practice or anything along those lines, you still get recognition from the Hidden Ref. And we've seen from a number of past submissions that people were getting a lot of kudos on the back of that work. So people were using it in their promotion paperwork and they were getting promoted. People were making the case that they should have an actual ref impact case study based on the fact that they'd won their category within the Hidden Ref. So there are lots of benefits just to taking part in the competition for itself.
And it's cooler. It's just...
Yeah, it is.
Ref. Come on. This is the French
and there's a ceremony.
Ref.
There's a ceremony, yeah.
It's so much more fun. And it is, I think it's the only part of the ref process between now and 2028 that will bring joy. So put some joy into your ref life. So put some joy into your refing life and submit to the Hidden Ref.
That is the new strap line. Thank you very much, Gemma.
It's okay.
What about you, Ola? Are you looking forward to anything in the coming year?
I think I really look forward to the expert groups and really getting them to read our guidance and what we've got from the experiment and the other workshops from last year. And I think it's starting to shape up quite nicely. So that's exciting that we can present it as a not maybe so finished product, but a product definitely in construction to them.
So the thing I'm looking forward to is the difficulty of updating our website when it comes to talking about supporter organizations. So every single time I'm doing a talk at the moment, people are coming to me afterwards and saying, oh, we'd like to be involved with that, which is brilliant. It means that, the message is getting through. It certainly shows what we always suspected all along, which was that everybody wants this change to happen. They just didn't know how to do it. So I think we're going to get some interesting new supporters over the next few weeks. Can't say which ones yet because it's not finished, but yeah, and that's why I'm looking forward to the new groups who are joining us and the new domains that we're going to enter.
So what's your new refs resolution then?
New refs resolution.
New refs. I'm going to try and put ref into every sentence. It's like new refs resolution. What is it, Simon?
So I think my new refs resolution will be to work more with the people who are putting the ref into place within universities, and we have been working with them a certain amount, but they're also hidden. They are very much within the hidden role category in my mind. So a lot of their work is overlooked. We've tried to work with them more, but I'm starting to meet lots more of them, and they're not well advertised who these people are. So I've found it really interesting to work with the people who are actually at the coalface of putting the submission together, taking all of the competing requirements from their universities and trying to submit something to the ref under the constant cosh of, am I going to do this properly? Is this going to really damage the university? Am I going to be in trouble? So my new refs resolution is to work more with those people, and I'm looking forward to it.
You, Ola, what's your new refs resolution?
Well, that's hard. It's a tough question, but I think maybe just looking at the ref, just rather than seeing it as a kind of, disciplining device that we all have to do and we have to comply with. It's basically like a change tool. So I'm hoping to convey that spirit into everything I do in this project and see the ref as a positive tool for change for the communities that really want it, and they've been shouting about it for such a long time.
Yeah. For me, my new refs revolution. Ooh, I said revolution instead of resolution.
Which I think shows how you think about these things.
Oh, that was a Freudian slip that I'm happy to go with. My new refs revolution is to get people talking about this in the academic literature area. I want, the experts to see what we're doing, hear what we're doing through the publication of, the research that we're doing, Ola, and all the other research, and get them discussing it and bringing it really, really to the forefront of a discussion. It would be great if there was a conference that said we wanted to do a special session on the non-traditionally submitted outputs and how to evaluate them the same way that we've seen it with impact in the past, etc. I want people talking about it, and I want people talking overseas about it. I want to go and talk to these people about it. And Ola, you're going to be talking to people about it too. But I really want to bring this more from a revolution into an academic, discussion, because I think that's where we get other people working on the same area. And we get people working from different perspectives and bringing different perspectives into the same problem, because this is not a problem that is, restricted to the REF or restricted to the UK. Global domination, basically.
Next steps.
That's the way we're doing it. Next steps.
Okay, so thank you very much for listening or watching. You can always catch up on the latest podcast on YouTube or anywhere else that you're getting your podcasts from. If you want to get in touch with us, please email wtref@hidden-ref.org, and your email will be picked up and we'll respond as soon as we can. So thank you so much for your attention, and thank you. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Guys, bye.